Mangwanani malelepo vukenjani klekwa savana ve Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning. This is your portal into Africa's potent stories. Today we take you to the Seychelles, where voters prepare for a presidential runoff that will shape the nation's future. In Madagascar, President Andry Rajoelina dissolves the government amid fierce Gen Z protests. Morocco also faces youth-led unrest, while Human Rights Watch raises alarms over repression in Tanzania ahead of elections. Namibia battles and contains a massive blaze at Etosha National Park. Zimbabwe's Noviolet Bulawayo secures the best of 25 years Caine Prize honor. Plus, the Botswana report with Rorisang Mogojwe brings current affairs and sport. Watch AGM on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com, NTV Africa on YouTube. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly. Let's get into the top stories on AGM. In a pivotal moment for the Indian Ocean archipelago, the Seychelles Electoral Commission has scheduled the second round of the presidential election for October 9 to 11 this year, after no candidate secured the 50% majority in the first round on September 27. Incumbent President Wavo Ramkalawan of the L'Union Democratic Seselwa coalition, a former Anglican priest who ended decades of one-party rule in 2020, garnered 46.4% of the vote, campaigning on post-pandemic economic recovery, expanded social protections, infrastructure development, as well as strengthening Seychelles' environmental leadership as a global biodiversity hotspot. Trailing closely was opposition challenger Dr. Patrick Herminy of the United Seychelles Party, a former parliamentary speaker and veteran lawmaker who secured 48.8% by focusing on tackling rising living costs, educational decline, corruption, and the growing drug crisis impacting the tourism-reliant economy. Herminy's campaign resonated despite his 2023 arrest on controversial coup plotting allegations involving witchcraft, which supporters called political persecution. With Seychelles' 120,000 citizens set to choose between continuity and a return to united Seychelles roots, the runoff promises high stakes for the nation's stability as well as its prosperity. Moving on. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina announced the dissolution of his government after days of youth-led protests over water and electricity shortages. Addressing the nation, he apologized for government failings and confirmed that applications for a new prime minister would be received over the next 3 days. The so-called Gen Z protests began in Antananarivo before spreading to 8 cities, with demonstrators demanding rights and chanting, "We want to live, not survive." The UN condemned unnecessary force by security officials, reporting 22 deaths and 100 injuries, though Madagascar's foreign ministry rejected those figures. Riot police enforced curfews with rubber bullets and tear gas, while reports of looting and legislators' homes being attacked surfaced. Protesters alleged that hired thugs had infiltrated their movement. Despite tensions, Rajoelina emphasized his desire to engage young people directly. He said current ministers would serve in interim roles until a new cabinet is formed. The unrest represents the most serious challenge of his presidency since his re-election in 2023, echoing earlier upheavals in Madagascar's political history, including the 2009 mass protests that brought Rajoelina to power. Thousands returned to the streets again, showing no signs of retreat. In our next story, A heavy security deployment suppressed youth-led demonstrations for a third consecutive day in Morocco as protesters demanded reforms to health and education systems. The protests, coordinated online by the anonymous group Gen Z 212 via TikTok, Instagram and Discord, were blocked in Rabat, Casablanca, Agadir, Tangier and Ouaja. Dozens were arrested, including Najat Anoa, president of a child protection association, briefly detained after investigating reports of underage arrests. Protesters managed to chant freedom, dignity, and social justice before being dispersed. In Casablanca, demonstrators blocked a major highway, while in Agadir, police broke up student gatherings near a university campus. The unrest followed initial demonstrations over poor hospital conditions in Agadir that spread nationwide. Videos circulated online showed police confronting youths, while unemployment figures revealed worsening discontent, with youth unemployment at 35.8% and 19% among graduates. In Rabat, plainclothes officers detained those attempting to speak with the press. The government and judiciary have yet to comment, and the Interior Ministry did not respond to inquiries. Demonstrators criticized inadequate care, understaffing, and insufficient resources, intensifying frustration with Morocco's struggling public services. In our next story, Human Rights Watch has warned of increasing political repression in Tanzania, threatening the credibility of elections scheduled for October 29 this year. Opposition leaders, activists, journalists, and civil society members have reported abductions, assaults, and arbitrary arrests. The organization documented 10 cases of torture and harassment, including the disappearance of opposition figure Mdude in Mbeya and the beating of critic Japhet Matara in Dar es Salaam. Courts dismissed habeas corpus petitions, while police denied involvement. Other high-profile cases include the abduction of media owner Maria Sarunget Shahai in Kenya and the killing of Chadema member Ali Kibao. The Electoral Commission barred Chadema from the elections and disqualified ACT Wazalendo's presidential candidate Luhaga Mpina, heightening concerns over independence. Religious leaders and lawyers have also faced threats, with churches shut down after speaking against abductions. Media outlets have been censored, websites suspended, and access to social platforms restricted. Critics argue the Commission's presidential appointments undermine impartiality. International bodies, including the African Commission, UN, and European Parliament, have raised concerns about repression, media restrictions, and freedom of assembly, questioning whether the elections will reflect voters' will. We'll take a quick break before we continue with the top stories. In a world where politicians promise the moon and deliver potholes, where democracy sometimes arrives in camouflage and ballots often look like formalities, one show dares to laugh with Africa, at Africa, and sometimes for Africa. This is Second Take, your weekly dose of political satire with an African soul and a global edge. From coups disguised as press briefings to ministers moonwalking past accountability, we serve the real news with sharper writing. Each week we bring you the TikTok of the week, because sometimes the revolution is vertical, and the heartwarming moment of the week to remind us that not everything is burning. We also sit down with the bold, the brilliant, and the brave, voices that question power, stir thought, and spark laughter. Because when the headlines are wild, the leaders are louder, and the truth is lost in translation, we all need a second take. Let's continue with the last of our top stories. Namibia's Environment Minister Indeleni Daniel confirmed that a massive fire which swept through a third of Etosha National Park has been contained after a week of destruction. The blaze spread beyond the reserve into neighboring regions near Angola, burning hundreds of thousands of hectares of grazing land. At least 9 antelope perished, while the fire threatened black rhinos and other wildlife. Officials blamed strong winds, dry vegetation, and possibly a charcoal production site outside the park. Helicopters and hundreds of soldiers were deployed, with over 500 more troops later sent to assist. Opposition voices criticized the government for lack of preparedness and called for long-term response strategies. Prime Minister Elijah Ngurare confirmed that fires spreading into Oshikoto, Oshana, and Kunene were now under control, though the full scale of damage awaits aerial surveys covering nearly 23,000 square kilometers. Etosha is among Africa's largest parks and draws 200,000 tourists annually. It is home to 114 mammal species and hundreds of bird varieties. Experts note that while wildfires are natural in savannas, careful management is needed to protect ecosystems as well as communities. In the last of our top stories, Zimbabwean author Noviolet Bulawayo has been awarded the Best of 25 Years Caine Prize for African writing, cementing her reputation as one of the continent's most celebrated literary voices. The honor recognizes the finest work from a quarter century of the prize, which has become a leading platform for African literature. Bulawayo, known for her bold storytelling and distinctive voice, emerged victorious in a special competition that brought together past winners. Her success highlights Zimbabwe's strong tradition of literary excellence and brings global attention to her contributions. The Caine Prize, often referred to as Africa's leading literary award, has provided a stage for diverse narratives across the continent. This latest recognition affirms Bulawayo's place amongst its most influential alumni. She previously gained acclaim for her fiction exploring themes of identity, migration, and social transformation. By receiving this honor, Bulawayo not only secures her place in literary history, but also underscores the significance of African voices in shaping global storytelling. The award continues to highlight the continent's creativity and cultural power on the world stage. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, Rorisang Mogojwe joins us for the Botswana report from Gaborone. But prior to that, it's the weather. Yesterday, Botswana celebrated 59 years of independence, and we celebrated with them. And I know Rorisang, you are certainly still in that spirit. Happy Independence Day, and welcome to Africa. Good morning.
Dumela Ashwin, Dumelang to everyone who's tuned in right now. Our greetings all the way from Botswana as we celebrate our independence. 59 years of independence. As you can see, I am in my traditional gear, ready to continue with our festivities. We celebrated yesterday on September 30th, and today we continue with our festivities. But right now, though, it's time to get down to business on Africa. Good morning.
Let's get down to business. Indeed, Botswana has rolled out news bulletins in 4 indigenous languages. That's wonderful news.
That is correct, Ashwin. As part of independence celebrations this year, the government launched news bulletins in 4 indigenous languages, that is Sekalaka, Sekgalagadi, Disiye, and Senaro, essentially broadening access to information to citizens who especially rely on mother tongues. This development is expected to particularly benefit rural communities, ensuring that language is no longer a barrier to staying informed on national matters. For many years, for decades, Setswana and English have dominated platforms, official platforms, which is a situation that has long drawn criticism from activists as well as cultural experts and groups who argue that this has marginalized other indigenous languages. And so calls for reform grew louder in recent years as communities pushed for greater inclusion as well as recognition of their languages in schools, in public services, and in the media. And so by introducing these these news bulletins in indigenous languages, government has essentially responded to these concerns and has positioned this move as part of a broader effort to promote cultural diversity as well as strengthen national identity.
All right, Rorisang, moving on to your next story. And by the way, that was a lovely update. And what a way to commemorate Independence Day, making sure that indigenous languages are platformed and thus securing more access to information for Botswana. But as I said, moving on, and we're staying in the media space, Botswana will soon begin charging value-added tax on services such as Netflix.
Yes, so Botswana is expected to start charging value-added tax or VAT on digital services such as Netflix, Amazon, and Alibaba, as well as other foreign providers. And these amendments, which have been added to the Value-Added Tax Act, have been passed by Parliament, or they were passed by Parliament in August of this year, and are expected to take effect in April of 2026, which is when the new financial year of government begins. And according to Ministry of Finance officials, this law will now require these foreign digital services or service providers to now register with the Botswana Unified Revenue Services, that's BRX, or the taxmen, as well as adjust their systems in order to charge VAT on local consumers and remit that payment to the BRX. Enforcement, according to officials, is going to rely on IP addresses and banking details of the consumers who will be paying for these services. And we understand that this new framework will also cover remote services such as those that are being offered by external legal or consulting firms. Now, authorities do believe that this move will help curb tax evasion as well as generate, a substantial amount of revenue for government, especially now at a time when the country is facing tough economic challenges.
Now, I wish we could wrap up on a more positive note, Rorisang, but it seems Team Botswana has faced a challenging start to the World Para Athletics Championships.
Fresh off a win at the Tokyo 2025 World Athletics Championships, all eyes are now on Team Botswana, currently competing at the World Para Athletics Championships in India. Team Botswana has faced a challenging start at the World Para Athletics Championships in India, with athletes delivering personal bests but unfortunately missing out on early podium finishes. In the men's 400-meter T11 race, Bunkamile Bankaeze and his guide Thuso Balising clocked a season best of 54.50 seconds in round 1 before improving to a personal best of 53.78 in the semis. Despite this progress, the pair made it, or they reached third in their heat. but unfortunately did not qualify for the finals. Gloria Majaha is one athlete who has also showed resilience, finishing fifth in the women's 100-meter T13 final with a time of 13.38 seconds. Now she will come back. She will return for the 400-meter T13 event on Saturday, where the team hopes for a stronger result. Looking ahead, Ronald Richwell is set to return in the T37 200-meter heat at almost 10 a.m., while Bangaitse will feature again in the T37 200-meter final later in the day. Coach Katlego Matong said the team remains focused on steady improvement and sees the championships as a vital platform to gain experience against top international athletes ahead of future Paralympic events.
All right, thank you, Rorisang, for delivering such a well-rounded report from Botswana.
Thank you so much for having me. Until next time, Africa, good morning.
In economic news, Nigeria and South Africa could be removed from the Financial Action Task Force's grey list as soon as this month, in a decision that may strengthen their economic reputation and improve capital inflows. The Paris-based FATF placed both nations under heightened monitoring in February 2023 due to deficiencies in combating illicit financial flows. Recent assessments, which included on-site inspections, highlighted significant progress in implementing required action plans. Burkina Faso and Mozambique were also noted for similar advances. FATF President Elisa de Anda Mandrago has already indicated that South Africa has met all or nearly all of the actions outlined. Sources familiar with the process expect all four countries to be cleared on October 24 during the FATF plenary in Paris, though the final decision has not yet been confirmed. Removal from the grey list would mark a significant development for Nigeria and South Africa, whose economic credibility has been under pressure since the designation. Observers note that being grey-listed carries reputational damage even without direct penalties, reducing investor confidence and limiting financial inflows. In our next economic news story, the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump has announced support for a one-year extension of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, a key trade law with sub-Saharan Africa set to expire. A White House official confirmed the position, marking the first clear statement from the administration since it took office in January. AGOA, introduced in 2000, provides duty-free access to the U.S. market for thousands of products and is seen as central to job creation across more than 30 eligible countries. Although the law has enjoyed broad bipartisan support in Congress, the timing of its renewal remains uncertain. The most viable option would be attaching the extension to the stopgap funding bill being advanced by Republicans to prevent a government shutdown. Now, African governments and investors have been actively lobbying for a 1 or 2 year extension after longer-term renewal efforts stalled in Congress. Despite AGOA's benefits, its impact has recently been undermined by tariffs introduced in August, which exposed former duty-free exports to import taxes of 10 to 30%. And in the last of our stories, Equatorial Guinea will open a new oil and gas licensing round in April 2026 to attract exploration and address falling production levels, according to its hydrocarbons and mining minister Antonio Oburu Ondo. Speaking at the African Energy Week in Cape Town, he confirmed the round would run until November and make 24 blocks available, 2 of them onshore and the rest offshore. The country, an OPEC member, has faced sharp declines in oil production, which peaked at 241,000 barrels per day in 2010, but dropped to 55,000 barrels per day in 2023. The IMF forecasts modest annual growth of 0.9% from 2025 to 2030 due to this decline. Companies like Chevron, Trident Energy, ConocoPhillips and state-owned GE Petrol are currently operating 6 fields. Chevron's Noble Energy subsidiary also reached terms for the Aseng gas project, requiring an initial $690 million investment aimed at bolstering LNG supplies. Equatorial Guinea is further pursuing regional gas cooperation, including the Gulf of Guinea pipeline with Nigeria and the $4.5 billion EG-27 LNG project backed by a Afrexim Bank. Those have been our stories on Africa. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, Network Media Hub on YouTube, as well as NTV Africa on YouTube. Keep in mind, you can still watch us on oneup2.com Echo. That's oneup2, ONEUPTWO. You go there, you click the Echo icon, and you can watch this and other NTV programs at your own time, because on Echo, prime time is anytime. My name is Ashwin Bedi. This has been Africa Good Morning. Tomorrow, we return with the South Africa report delivered by Adi Hogad from Cape Town, and of course, Africa's broader stories. Sweda Zaganaka.